Okay, Tyler, do you want to talk about your tan to kick things off here?
It's fading. I'm losing it.
Well, go
I'm
ahead.
just excited.
Go ahead.
Well, how like here in Canada, how often are we able to sport a tan?
Yeah, maybe like 8 weeks out of the year.
This time of the year. So
unless you're coming back from a vacation.
And
like
I don't
yourself.
fake tan, so when I get an authentic tan, I'm excited to talk about it.
Do you do the pre-tan before you
I
go?
don't do the pre-tan. No,
Because
I bareback it.
You've got you've got two colors. You got white and then red, right?
I've got frog belly white.
Yeah.
And then I got lobster red. I don't really have much in between. So, the poor locals down there in Nuevo Vallarta where we were last week, I remember a lot of them were like, that man needs to see a doctor.
You're giving them a light show.
It was a bit of a light show.
Yeah.
It was like, you look a lot different than you did 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I was very red. But yes, no, I'm excited to still have it. And I don't know, I'm tempted to go to the fake and bake and actually retain it. Hold on to it.
Yeah. So I worked for this company, and every sales meeting, this guy had a fake and bake booth in his house.
I had that growing up.
And everybody just ripped on him big time. There was hundreds of people in the room, and they ripped on him every single time.
Well, it's funny because my mom got one. She got it was a one-sided one. She was she decided to rent it when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Because my mom was kind of into that stuff, into trying to look good. And she's like, I'm going to rent one of these tanning booths. And what it was is it came in on a clamp cart, and you could roll it. And it was literally this desk. And you could lay on a bed and it would slide over top of you. You just turn it on.
Amazing.
But don't fall asleep under it.
No.
That causes major problems.
Yeah. Well, speaking of making yourself look good.
Yes.
That was an okay.
That was a good segue.
That was an okay segue.
Yeah. It's your smile is important, and having a great smile is brought to you by our good friend, Mr. Eric Kukucka.
Wow.
Do you like that?
That was really nice.
That was good. I might steal that from you.
The segue from
there's no stealing. It's yours. It's our gift. Yeah.
It's our gift to you today. How you doing, man?
Grateful.
You're grateful for our gift? Yeah.
Very.
Awesome. So how are things? What's that?
And the tan.
And the tan. Grateful to see it. Thank you. Are you coming to us from Windsor today? Where are you located?
Windsor, Ontario, Canada today. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Because I know you got 3 locations now?
We're at 2. Sold the last one off actually, so we're at 2 locations now: Windsor and Leamington, Ontario.
Leamington.
What's your favorite?
Tomato capital of Canada. In case you're wondering,
Oh.
Heinz tomato ketchup.
Are you serious?
I'm writing it down.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is Heinz? This might be a dumb question, but is that a Canadian company?
Yes,
They might grow
it is.
a lot of stuff.
Really? So Heinz ketchup comes from Leamington, Ontario.
Leamington, Ontario, as do probably most of the tomatoes in your local grocery store. So Moochie, maybe one of them, Sunpack. Pretty all over the North America. It's all from pretty much Leamington, Ontario.
We should just have a
Also,
show on produce.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's also, I believe, it's the largest, one of the, if not the largest, greenhouse population.
Just growing tomatoes then.
Tomatoes and vegetables and those things, but it is the tomato capital of the country.
Gotcha.
I wasn't. I didn't imagine that the tomatoes would be fields and fields open in the in the balmy winter climates.
Balmy Leamington, Ontario. So how far from Windsor is Leamington?
About 35 minutes.
Okay.
Drive.
Gotcha.
That's a Canadian thing to do. If you say how far away is it, you give it in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know
Not
that?
kilometers or miles. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess
time. Yeah.
if you're American, what do you say? It's about 100 miles that way.
Yeah, 100 miles out or 10 miles down the road, or so it's only 3 miles up the street.
Yeah. The moon is 3 days away.
Well, I think in Canada we're always dealing with adverse weather conditions, so it's like, it's only 45 minutes that way, but if you get caught in a squall,
The squalls. Yeah.
you could be in trouble.
Damn squalls.
Or
So, Eric, what's
Toronto,
new?
You can get downtown on a good day in 45 minutes, and sometimes it could take you 3 hours.
Yeah, but that's traffic related. I mean, that's the same as an LA problem, right?
LA problems.
LA problems.
Yeah.
I will say though, I had to get from Concord to London, I think about 2 or 3 years ago. And I remember they said, whatever it was, what is it, like an hour and a half from Concord to London, I'm guessing. And they said, you better get moving because the weather's about to change. And we left Concord and I think it was like maybe 10 degrees out. By the time I had gotten like just like to the Kitchener-Waterloo area, it had dropped to -10. And I'm like, whoa, this is interesting. Now what's going to happen? And I remember the car in front of me was in about 3 or 4 minutes facing me after I followed him. And I remember seeing the driver in front of me with a like look of terror on his face because his car had done a full 360 in front of me. And like as he was going past me, and I'm like, why is this car doing a 360 in front of me? That doesn't happen here.
No.
Where the weather can change that fast and all of a sudden the road just turns into sheer ice, like literally within minutes. That was scary.
At least it wasn't you.
It wasn't me.
Doing 360.
I did some evasive maneuvers to get away from
Did he
that.
pull it off though? Did he complete it?
He just kind of spun around and he kind of veered off into the corner. I think he went and like calmed himself down and then got himself composed. But yeah, it was pretty, he didn't hit anything, which was pretty remarkable.
It was worth it then.
It was 4 o'clock on the 401. It was like crazy busy or whatever highway, a busy highway. I'm assuming the 401, but I don't know.
Probably the 401.
It's always the 401.
It's always a 401. I just don't know if the 401 goes that way, but that's just my own math. So Eric, what's new? How are things in the denture world?
Things are evolving. Let's say that.
Yes. That's why I wanted to have you on.
Yeah, I mean, I think when everywhere you turn, there's another 3D printed material or a new printer out on the market, or a 3D printed tooth material that's coming out, or a new scanner or new software. And I think, it's evolving so exponentially because, the removable market is still, there's so much market share out there. And the last study that I read was about 5% of the dentures done globally per year are digital. So you still have 95% of dentures being done analog, right? Where I don't know the statistics, but if we were to do the metrics for crown and bridge, I think it would probably be the reverse, maybe 70-30 or 80-20.
No, that's about right. We were with a large lab partner. We asked them that.
Through a couple different labs, it's 70% is their crown and bridge. That seems to be a golden standard.
It all comes in digitally.
So who makes up that 5% then?
I think definitely right now, it's still your early adopters. Definitely your innovators, your early adopters, and I think in Canada at least, it's starting to become a lot more mainstream. I think the denturists now that this technology's been around for we started in 2014, so you're talking 8 years, but let's say industry relevant since about 17, 18. So it's becoming something that's really tried, tested, and true. And I think that you're now getting in our industry as denturists, you're starting to see I better get on this because the guy down the street's doing it, or, my friend's doing it and I'm not, or I went to a conference and like people are so far ahead of me, right? So I think that little bit of fear factor is really what's starting to come out now, and who those 5% are. I can definitely tell you denturists are accounting for a large size of the volume of dentures done digitally, because that's what we do all day, every day. I think your average private practice maybe sees 1 to 2 denture patients a day,
Well, the typical dentist practice, they don't want to do dentures, right? They send them down the hall to the denturist. That's typically
they should be, in my opinion, giving them to the specialists.
Yeah.
The denturists.
Yeah. And I think you have, and that's, what percentage would that be? I still think you do have a lot of general dentists that are doing it because they have to, maybe to meet metrics or numbers, or they want to provide that care. And I think that is the one missing link in removable prosthodontic treatment therapy globally, is the lack of fundamental knowledge and understanding of how to make a denture. And that's why you hear everybody, I hate dentures, or it's the worst. Or whenever I see a denture patient or a partial that's 30 years old, I don't even touch it because I don't want to have to deal with it. And, a lot of that is sheer, just again, ignorance of not understanding the fundamental principles. But digital does help with that, and if you look at partial removable therapy and how you can intraoral scan, irrespective of the type of scanner you have, some are better than others, but irrespective of that, you can intraoral scan a partially edentulous patient and predictably get a digitally manufactured framework and seat that framework 90+% of the time, as long as your scans are globally accurate. So we're actually doing a clinical study right now in the practice on 50 patients. And our early results are showing, I believe it was 96 or 97% success rate of seated partial frameworks from intraoral scans without any adjustments.
Wow.
Average appointment to delivery 2.86, and that includes the post adjustment appointment. So when you take that into effect, I mean, we're doing what we call scan to finish. We scan, we print our models, we get the frameworks are selective laser sintered, so basically metal 3D printing. And then we conventionally process it with Ivobase and conventional denture teeth, or we'll mill denture teeth and conventionally process it. And yeah, I mean, we're going right to finish. And if the bite's off, you just remake it. But if 94 or 90+% of the time you're going to deliver in 2 appointments, we'll take that risk any
That's
time.
pretty awesome. Yeah, totally.
That's amazing.
The adjustments post-operatively is what's been the most remarkable. Is, a lot of times patients come back, I actually have no problems. It's just fine. It's because you're taking that mucostatic, call it digital mucostatic impression, where you have no movement or distortion or compression of the tooth structure and the surrounding soft tissue. So you really and truly have this static position or this static record of what you've captured. And that's what's allowed these partials to be so successful. And I'm telling you, digital removable partials is one of the most exciting things right now for me in digital removable.
Yeah.
So that's so interesting because, whenever I'm through a lab or talking to somebody that's in that world, their pushback is always, well, it's, digital, it's not possible because, the soft tissue, it's static. But you're saying that that's a good thing.
That's actually a benefit.
So there's pros and cons, or there's supporting arguments towards one versus the other. There's evidence-based literature in the JPD that's supportive and unsupportive. So a lot of it can become really a matter of your treatment philosophy and modality, because there's science that supports both. And when you're talking about fully edentulous, I still feel what we call a mucocompressive. So to your comment of compression or no compression of the tissue in a fully edentulous patient, as long as it's taken in a functional state. So what I mean by functional state is the patient's biting down on something. Right. If you're a clinician and you're just taking your fingers and you're applying that pressure, then you're over compressing the tissue. And that's where the argument of the static intraoral scan is more accurate and more relevant, because it's not over compressing the tissue. Now,
I now have something to say back.
Yeah, exactly. And it is important in a full denture to also have a peripheral seal, because believe it or not, denture retention and stability and suction, the ridge is important, but your main suction mechanism is actually the ridge, the border. So getting that full seal like a suction cup, and you can get suction and good stability on a patient that has a really atrophic maxilla, no bone at all. But as long as you can get a perfect seal around that border, it'll fit. So that's where that argument between intraoral scan and mucostatic versus functional mucocompressive, where that argument comes in. What I will say though, from a mucostatic for partials, it's so much beneficial because that's tooth and tissue supported, right? It's not a tissue supported restoration. It's tooth and tissue supported. And other times it may also be tooth borne. So you're even more tooth supported than you are tissue supported, right? So I think the accuracy, predictability, and the reduced sore spots does come from that static impression encompassing the static position of the teeth, the soft tissues, and why those frameworks fit so passively. And you're completely eliminating all the marginal room for error of casting a chrome cobalt framework. You have the shrinkage of, first of all, dimensional stability of your alginate impression. Then the dimensional stability change of pouring your model. Even if you measure, use a vacuum mix, and you're doing dye stone, you're still going to have some dimensional stability. Then the dimensional stability of the wax pattern. Then the casting. Then post-processing. Then trimming. Then fitting it to the model. Too much block out. Not enough block out. All those different factors that come into play. No different than how today a dentist can intraoral scan for a single tooth crown, and probably 9 times out of 10, as long as it's done right, it just goes.
Yep. Digitally, yeah. Without a model. Yeah. And are you noticing any kind of migration away, like from the metal frameworks? Like, are you seeing more acetal and like other kind
I think like acetals coming, into the industry because of our ability now to maximize those desirable undercuts in the remaining anatomy of the teeth that we have. And I mean, sometimes we're doing even milled acrylic or even printed acrylic partials without clasps, or a very small clasp that's just capturing one part of the infrabulge, because they're so retentive to the undercut, because you're digitally designing that path of insertion and blocking out those guide planes, but still maximizing into those desired undercuts. So I think that's where acetal is, has a really great place in the marketplace. And I think also, having that aesthetic aspect of it, I've still always really been a fan of cast chrome frameworks when designed correctly. And, it's a much more rigid frame. You have the ability to add teeth to it. And now, because we can predictably deliver this in 2 appointments, you don't have to worry anymore about them not fitting and remakes and re-impressing and all those unfortunate factors that come into play. And sometimes we'll do a hybrid model with a cast frame and a Valplast on the saddle. So if it's someone that really wants that aesthetic anterior, sometimes do a little Valplast clasps and those types of things too. But yeah, acetal, I think it's a really nice, unique material.
I think last time we spoke, Eric, we talked about the entry point for Dentures to get into digital. So are you still involved with education and sort of teaching points and whatnot, and in terms of like jumping into being digital?
Yeah, so still doing a ton of education online, still doing a lot of webinars, finally getting back onto the circuit, which has been nice to get on a plane and go stand on a stage instead of, with all due respect, in front of this computer screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I still think, for me, I still stand to what I say is the entry point is just try a case. Don't change anything at all in your clinical workflow. And if your clinical workflow is to, do a custom tray and take a final impression and make a set of bite blocks and take your bite using your bite blocks, take that entry point and then render that digital. I think that too often people get so inundated and, oh my God, I got to change everything and this is going to disrupt my flow and I don't want to change. And I've been doing this for 20 or 30 years or 5 years for that matter, right? And change management's so hard, not just internally, but of course externally with your team and everybody around you. And it's just that fear of the unknown and this preconceived notion that it's this, mind-boggling transformation, and you don't actually have to change anything clinically except for understanding how to look at a digital denture for your try-in and your finished product. So I think that's really, for me, the entry point is that.
Just to try one. So say if I'm a denturist and I want to try a case, what do I do? Do I borrow a scanner from someone? Do I send an impression in and get it scanned and have them digitize it? Like what does the try a case process look like?
A few ways people are doing it. I've had people come to me that are interested and they know they do want to make the investment, but they want to try it first. So their rep from whatever dental supply company or scanner supply company comes out to them. They book an appointment and say, hey, I want to do a digital denture. Can you bring, typically it would be done with an intraoral scanner. I think lugging a box scanner around doesn't really happen. So if the opportunity is to do with an iOS, and you can iOS scan impressions or you can iOS scan dentures. I mean, for us, we have 3 lab scanners. Maybe they get used 5% of the time, pretty much just for implant cases. Or if 3 out of our iOS scanners are not available, then someone's scanning it on the lab scanner. But we're pretty much obsolete with the lab scanners in our infrastructure. Now, having said that, somebody that's been doing dentures for 20 or 30 years, that wants something simple to just put the model in a lab scanner and let it do the work, I think that's viable. Like I have an associate that's, is he 65 now? 65, and him handling the trios, not that great. But him putting it into lab scanner and letting it do its magic, and then he just has to click some things around. That's a lot easier, right? So I think we look at no different than like, I think the three of us could do everything on here, but more of the generation wants to have a monitor and a computer and a keyboard, right? So I think that's how I relate a lab scanner and an intraoral scanner. So getting back to the original question, that's one way people are doing it, is having a local sales rep come in for the day, book the appointment, scan some dentures or scan the wax rims or the stone models, and then they'll partner with an external lab that's proficient in digital dentures. The other way is they'll find a lab or a partner that's proficient, and they'll just mail the stone model and wax rim out to the lab. And then they'll just, no different than when they're doing a casting. Then send your models out for your casting articulated and get your stuff back, or an implant bar or anything like that.
It's funny you talk about how sales reps, they don't lug the old lab scanners around anymore. Well, you're talking to a guy who used to lug the Dental Wings scanner out of his trunk.
Is that right? Yeah.
Oh, God, that was 2012, 2013. I used to, myself and Katie at Henry Schein. She's not, I don't think she was a Schein anymore, but back in the day, we used to drive from lab to lab to lab with this Dental Wings 5 Series in the back of my Toyota Camry. And we would lug this thing out of the box and take it in and do a demo. And I remember back then thinking, man, oh man. And she was like she was like this strong, fit girl being able to carry this thing. And I remember just being like, I can't carry this thing. Like, how are you going to do this? And she's like, don't worry, Tyler, I got this. You can just sit there and do your thing. You can talk while I carry the scanner around. I'm like, no. We'll work at this together. But, just watching her and even people after that I worked with, like, carry these lab scanners around from lab to lab, man, oh man. I'm glad those days are kind of over, that we can carry these intraoral scanners into offices, but yeah, and I don't even do that anymore.
So what's next? Like, what's the next amazing tool for this whole digital workflow?
Is that me or Eric?
Both. I'll throw it out to both of you.
Yeah,
guys.
what is the next big digital tool on the horizon, Eric?
I think the next biggest tool, I think the intraoral scanners becoming even more familiar with AI is what's going to make scanning better and faster.
AI.
The ability, 100%. And the ability to really, 3Shape has a really nice AI 2.0 software version right now that really has the ability to capture the depth and detail of soft tissue. There's a lot of great scanners out there. So I'm not just saying for 3Shape, the Prime Scan's a really impressive scanner as well. There's a lot of great scanners out in the market. But I think AI is what's going to drive. For me, the next biggest thing is AI and, more future development of face scanning, which is pretty much there now, but integrating that into CBCT technology and, we call creating the virtual patient, which we can do today. We do it on a lot of our big implant cases anyway. But I think as that further evolves and AI learns even more from that, I think the next big thing, it's not here yet, but I think an AI-driven denture design is going to come. I mean, we already have that for crown or 3-unit bridges is there today. I think it's only a matter of time. I think it'll be the most difficult thing to do, I think, from an AI perspective with dentures, because you have so many different sizes of molds and shapes and jaw relationships and jaw classifications and arrangements of the arches and shapes. And, I think it'll be a one-size-fits-most type of thing. But I mean, if we were to look back and think 5-10 years ago, would you ever be able to scan intraorally dentulous soft tissue? The answer would be hell no.
I remember having that conversation with so many people where I was like, this is coming. And, denturists looking me in the face and they're just like, I doubt it. I don't see it here yet. And I said, well, give it a year or two. And here we are now on the other side of it. And it's anything's capable now. Anything's possible now.
Well, and with AI too, it's just a matter of collecting data, right? That's as soon as we have that data set, you can do all sorts of things with it.
I think it's that encompassed. I think we're going to see an exploding evolution in the additive manufacturing sector. And I mean, there's already, how viable they are today, but there's already printable ceramics. There's people are printing zirconium oxide. There's, we're printing metal. We are printing nanohybrid composites today, predictably, and we're printing photopolymerized denture resins. It's we're not printing acrylic yet. And I want to be very clear on that is, no one today has yet to reproduce or print polymethyl methacrylate. I will say there's some impressive materials. I mean, the Lucitone print is a pretty impressive photopolymer. With the BAM technology that they have, the body activated mechanism that makes it stronger in the oral cavity due to the heat of the oral cavity, and increases the flexural strength and the mechanical and chemical properties of the resin, which is pretty impressive. Flexera from Desktop Health is a pretty impressive resin right now. Sprint Ray's coming out with some pretty unique resins as well. That Onyx is a pretty unique from a mechanical property perspective of what it's showing, and a lot of people are actually already integrating that in some single tooth temporary crowns and temporary interim fixed PMMA bridges. Like the next big thing I think is whomever is going to be able to print polymethyl methacrylate, and if that's not possible, then whoever will print white and pink at the same time or on the same build platform for that matter, kind of in a laser printing concept, I think will win. Because I think when you look at production and strength to print a monolithic denture, not a white monoblock that you layer composite on the facial, I'm talking about printing pink-based material with the sockets and printing the teeth somehow, some way within a cycle, whether it's like prints on one build plate here, washes itself, and then starts to layer itself in the other build plate or something like that, robotic. And it's interesting, there has to be that form of automation. I mean, automation, look at the automotive industry, automation for how long, of precision and protocols and automation and then robotics and, all these things to assemble a vehicle that we get in and you don't even think twice about driving. You're like, yeah, it's safe. It's perfect. I got no problem.
It's got autopilot. We're good.
Yeah. Or drive itself or park itself,
But I think like, to go back to your point about like having these multi-process sort of printers, I would look at how, like, if you look at the Roland mill, like, or even going back to the VHF mill where they came out with the S, I'm trying to think what it was. I think it was they had the V4 or VK4, I think it was, which was a little 4-axis mill. And then they came up with the S2, which was the 5-axis mill. And then they developed the 5-axis, which had the disc changer. And then Roland came out with the same thing around the same time, where they had, now you're able to not just mill a puck, but you had like 7 or 8 in the side chamber ready to go, so that you can turn it overnight. You can now mill multiple. You can mill zirconia, you can mill PMMA, all these different, and then the journey through that was figuring out how all these different materials were going to react and what was going to break the machine first and what was going to come loose. And it was like this whole headache of going, wow, yeah, this machine had a lot of capabilities, but it also had the more functionality you added to that machine, the more headaches you would cause yourself. But that's a whole other story. But my point is that I'm wondering if print technology is going to go down that road as well, where it's going to have the capability to print, Flexera on one side, a Sprint Ray material or whatever, like different property materials consecutively, or simultaneously.
Yeah, and I think it's that exactly what you're saying. It's that evolution, and you're right. It's like you think of whether it's the Roland or VHF or PM7 or whatever. It's you have this robust CNC machine that you're hoping it's like one machine does most, and then you throw Emax into the mix, and you got all this sludge that's just sitting in the bottom of the chamber, and it's just like, how does it perform so well? So I think that's why I say the next biggest thing, or what we're on the forefront of, is that next development. I still think today in the marketplace there's still a place for milling, and I think Ivoclar did an amazing job creating the Ivotion bicolor disc where you have white and pink in the same disc and you're milling it in one cycle. I think that was the biggest revolutionary thing in digital denture, in my opinion, to be able to do 80 to 85% of your cases geometrically. They didn't use AI to develop it, but they layered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dentures similar to AI, and then that's how they kind of designed where it fits in the disc.
Okay, that's cool.
I think doing that idea and concept, which I never thought possible. I saw it 4 years before it even became on the market, and I said, no way, never, not going to see it. Never happened. It's never going to work. I was like, this is stupid. Like, let's work on printing. And it was like, no, this is going to work, and it does work. And I think that will be the next thing in printing is that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the biggest breakthrough. The biggest breakthroughs are someone to print something just as good or better than today's injectable or milled PMMA, and then whomever can print and base and teeth at the same time.
It's and that the way you sort of categorize the two, I've never thought of it that way. That one is, again, it's something is photo cured or light cured versus a true polymethyl methacrylate. And I've never had it sort of explained to me in such a simplistic yet correct way. Which made a lot of sense to me as soon as you said it. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right, because these all need to be photo cured or light cured, and that does make a difference. So like when I sort of drill into these materials as well, I'm like, okay, well, why is this different? Tell me about the properties of it. And I think it's still such a new technology for a lot of people. They're having a hard time putting their finger on what the chemical makeup differences are. So that's pretty insightful.
Yeah, and I think too, what people forget too is curing actually is such a big part of it. And, you could have the best printer in the world, but if you're not using the right curing machine, and if that curing machine isn't allowing that material to hit those specific metrics, it's like baking. If they tell you cake, it's like measure this, measure that, mix this to the T, take it out of the oven in 35 minutes. You leave it in there longer, what happens? It burns. You leave it in there or you take it out too early, it's mush. It's the same thing with printing. You can over-cure a photopolymerized denture. And guess what? Shatter.
Yeah.
Right? Glass.
Too brittle.
You under-cure it, it'll be stronger, but it won't polish, it won't bond, and it'll collect stain and plaque, and it'll just be a nightmare. So there is that perfect recipe of that material hitting those perfect mechanical properties based on the curing unit as well.
So you mean it's not as easy as sending a file to your printer and pushing play?
That's when I'll get into it.
People leave their printed dentures in the isopropyl alcohol overnight, and it's like, you don't think that's degrading the material? Or even if you let it sit even for an extra hour, all those vapors in that bath are just insinuating themselves into that base. Like, there's a reason, like you said, no, there's actually a legitimate recipe of print it for this long, wash it for this long, clean it this way, cure it for this long. It's a strategic process. It's no different than a crown. Mill it for this long. So take it out of the sintering oven early. Let me know how well that works and how well it's staining glazing.
Yeah. And anyone who's been in this game long enough, if we get that phone call saying, hey, my dentures are coming out sideways or they're not curing properly, if you've gone through the days of selling CAD-CAM, usually your first answer is what? Pull out your instructions for use.
Yeah.
IFUs, yeah.
They already made the mistakes, right?
Well, we went through this with CAD-CAM.
Yeah.
With my crowns are coming out brown. They're shrinking. They're shrinking too much. They're not fitting properly. What's going on? Well, let's go back to the recipe. Like, how are you milling them? How are you sintering them? What's going on there? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times the answer is there. It's just you skipped a step.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We could talk about this all day.
For some reason, I want an apple pie.
We're craving some baking now, Eric. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, warm apple pie.
Yummy.
Right. Cool, man. Well, that's great. Yeah, there's a lot coming down the pipe, and I'll be interested to see. I don't know if there will be a polymethyl. That's such a hard one to say. PMMA.
PMMA.
Just PMMA. Are they going to be able to make a printable PMMA? Is that even possible? So,
I'm going to say yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
they will.
Who knows? So we'll see when it comes out.
They're going to print we're going to print organs.
I think they already are.
They already are.
Yeah. There you go. See, they already are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great chatting with you today, Eric. Is there anything else we want to talk about before we sign off today?
No, I think definitely. It's been an amazing chat with you guys as always. If anybody's looking for education, I'm going to plug my online education platform, which is learn.denturecenter.ca, where we have over 100 online education videos from clinical workflows, how to take impressions, and scanning for lab scanners, intraoral scanners, and design as well. So love for anybody to go on our platform. We also have in-person courses, and we also offer coaching and mentoring on getting you into your digital journey, from what scanner to buy, what software to buy. So yeah, please reach out to us.
So before I let you go, Eric, I want to I'm going to pull this up on the site here for everyone to see. So here's
awesome.
learn.
Thank you.
Yeah, so learn the denturecenter.ca, all things digital dentures, as you can see here. And then, yeah, so you've got all sorts of, why won't my screen scroll up here?
Got some good lag today.
Yeah,
No
we've
worries.
been having some lag issues. So,
Yeah.
But as you can see, there's the URL at the top there. And yeah, definitely check out all the courses that Eric has to offer. It's fun. He's been a go-to for us on the digital side of things, and that's why we love to have you on, man.
Awesome. Happy to be here, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, and give us a shout when that PMMA comes out, so we'll have you back on, and we can do an assessment of it.
Well, when we do that, we'll go watch some MMA
We'll watch some MMA
and have some apple pie.
Prerequisite.
with some tomatoes.
Oh yes! Awesome.
Okay, Eric, have a good one, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, you guys as well. Thank you.
All right, cheers.
Bye.